Okay, literally out of the box. So I'm Stephan Ouaknine, managing partner of Intergis Ventures, and I am a serial entrepreneur. I define myself as such because for 20 years I built tech companies from idea to R&D to commercialization to flirting with a potential acquirer to ultimate exit. So one company I took public in London on the FTSE 50 when we were ultimately when I left. And then the other two companies were acquired by NASDAQ companies. So after 20 years, I said, what can I do next? Let's try to work on clean tech. Let's work on carbon emissions, climate change, but by way of a fund, which was really hard for me as an entrepreneur, like a hardcore, true entrepreneur. Because to me, the idea of being a fund was like going to the dark side. Because a lot of the funds that I had met, a lot of the financial type people that I had met over my career weren't all such nice people. And so it was a conscious decision nevertheless. And what I want to talk to you about today is what we're doing in clean tech in Canada. It's a very exciting time to be in clean tech around the world and in Canada. But we have to try to refocus ourselves and really understand where we are at with clean tech. I want to talk about capital efficiency and I want to talk about commercialization because I think those two things are so important. So when I threw my hat in the ring and said, okay, let's go make a clean tech fund, I really wanted to defy the status quo, right? It was, as it's unimportant for me to, be tethered to this thing because I really need to move. It was also unimportant for me to raise a type of fund that was exactly structured the way all of the other clean tech funds were structured while we were asking ourselves, why is clean tech not working? Right? So if something's not working, let's try to find new models, let's try to defy the status quo. One of the things that I noticed as an entrepreneur was that either we were underfunding companies because they didn't have all of the qualifications that we were looking for, or we were overfunding companies. What does it mean to overfund a company? Because you really can do that. All the investors jump in together, and when I say all the investors, a lot of them are sort of governmental or quasi-governmental, and are looking for cover, are looking for comfort. So everybody goes in together because this one can say that one was in. If it goes badly, that one can say he was in. Surely it was the other guy's fault. But when everybody jumps in with too much money, the company ends up developing a habit of having a high burn rate and missing on their revenue forecasts. When you miss on your revenue forecasts and you're sitting on a pile of cash, you can find a way to say, well, the revenue's going to come around the bend, it's coming, it's just the customer, it's the regulatory environment, it's the government, whatever it is. You can do that once, twice, 3 times, but investor fatigue sets in, especially if your investors are funds and they're trying to raise a new fund. At some point, the investors are going to say enough's enough. And so capital efficiency is something we need to look at in Canada because I've been to too many events where we put on pedestals the companies who raised a lot of money because our value system is askew. What we're saying is we're thinking that you guys are awesome because you have all of these investors. What we should be saying is we think you're awesome because of how much you did with how little money you raised, right? And I know that this makes sense. You can clap, sir, in the back if you want to. We're bald. It's like a brotherhood. Go ahead. He was doing the silent Canadian clap because we're all so polite. So the second thing is commercialization. Of course, everybody here knows commercialization is important. The EDC is sponsoring this event. I loved working with them in my third company, specifically on commercializing exports. Bless you, sir. It's really important to use these incredible programs that the EDC has on bonding or on PO financing, but commercialization is where the rubber meets the road, right? Because if you are funded, let's say, overfunded maybe, and you've got, your product in a lab somewhere, ultimately the customer is going to treat your product as you've treated it. So as you've treated it. If you treat it as free, if you allow them to take advantage and do free trials forever because they're trying to prove it out, then you're going to keep deferring your own revenue. You won't be a healthy company. You need to put your foot down immediately and say, no. If you want our technology, we need you to pay for it now, not later. And if you're not, we'll go to the company down the road. And so that's something that I feel companies aren't doing enough. Now, we didn't just want to, state a truism at Energous Ventures. We wanted to be a part of that commercialization outcome. Because anybody can come out and say, I'm the entrepreneur's entrepreneur, right? Every VC on earth is the entrepreneur's entrepreneur. Anyone can come and say, revenues are important. I said so at the board meeting. Of course. Why were you late on your forecast? Well, you know, I heard a great story from the CEO. Anybody can say that. We didn't just want to, you know, talk the talk. We wanted to walk the walk. So we created a very flexible and out-of-the-box fund structure that allowed us to invest in projects and invest in tech companies by way of a more traditional blind pool fund for the types of institutions that need to invest in that type of fund, and also invest deal by deal using an SPV model for more nimble investors who wanted to be able to pick and choose what they want to be in. One way or another, what we did was create a structure that allowed us to create a project, like for example, a really cool tidal hydro project in Canada and in other parts of the world, and then invest in an amazing tidal hydro turbine and platform company. And guess what? The turbines and the platforms are in the project. So the turbine, the tech company has revenues, the project is more efficient and has a higher IRR. We have a company that makes these off-grid solar machines that we are able to electrify the 1 billion people in the world who are off-grid in Africa, India, Indonesia, Philippines, and beyond. And so this company that we've invested in has to go into projects. And so we partner with local companies around the world in those very projects, again, facilitating the commercialization. Another example is we're building the biggest vertical farm in the world, because ag tech is a part of clean tech, right? Carbon emissions don't just come from renewable energy. And so as we go out and build that, it becomes an incredible showcase for portfolio companies. So we've got a company, for example, that we're looking at investing in right now. I won't say their name, but they make an LED light for vertical farms. That it's an amazing Canadian company that can replicate the solar conditions so that that amazing Tuscan basil you had on that trip, okay, the solar conditions in Tuscany through AI and LEDs can be replicated in this vertical farm. So you can create a higher margin product, and you're using a product from a portfolio company in a project that is also quite profitable at an IRR that I'm almost embarrassed to tell you about. And so that's just one example. Because this is a really big project, there's a lot of other places we can put our technologies. We've got a vertical axis wind turbine, that goes on the roof. We've got solar panels, those go in another area. We've got our hydro turbines. Well, there happens to be a fast-moving river just behind this vertical farm. Guess where the turbines are going and connecting to a grid connection that was already there. And so we are looking actively to not just talk the talk, but to walk the walk. And so clean tech, capital efficiency, flexible fund structures, and commercialization focus is what is going to make the difference. Because when we zoom out, and this is the last thing I'll say because I see a flashing red light, when we zoom out, we have to stop self-congratulating. Yes, there's a lot of money from the federal government for clean tech. Yes, there are funds and there are other players, and there's an amazing ecosystem of companies here to go out and do stuff. Yes, the respective renewable energy, for example, markets are doing fairly well on their own, right? So if you listen to the wind industry, you know, it's a good CAGR. If you listen to the solar industry, look, prices are coming down. Everyone is saying that the growth is good. Zoom out, listen to a climate scientist, and then you'll find out that we have to be doing a lot more to avert the inevitability at this point, it seems, that we're going to go past 2 degrees of temperature increase. We cannot allow that to happen. This isn't anymore about our children and our children's children. Please understand that this is happening in our own lifetime. Miami is spending billions of dollars raising roads because of storm surges while voting Republicans who deny climate change. This has to start here in Canada. We have the opportunity to be a leader, but in order to lead this market, we need to think differently about clean tech. We can't just say, oh, I appreciate different fund models, except I'm only really mandated or comfortable to invest in the exact same kind of thing that I did before. We've got to start not just talking the talk, but walking the walk in terms of defying the status quo. And if we do that, we have an incredible opportunity here in Canada, not only to develop our own domestic markets, but to export the bejesus out of our technologies. So thank you very much. Have an awesome time.